but I'll get emotional here. It drives me, but if we're being honest, leave this, Jin. Don't edit this out. I'm speaking from my fucking heart. I know you're not going to like this. I'm going to look right. It drives me nuts. Nuts. It drives me nuts.
I don't think she could read right now.
1,000th episode.
Yeah, so...
Brandon Schaub and Bryan Callen celebrated their 1,000th episode of The Fighter and the Kid this week, and they did it in style. Okay, no, not really, but Brandon hyped it up all week, saying they were going to have a very special guest on episode 1000, someone who played a big role in its success, except they ended up just having a few of their buddies phone in for a Zoom call. And the best part for me was seeing the top comment get deleted by Chin. I didn't get a chance to screenshot the comment, but it said something along the lines of, how pathetic is this that they couldn't get any guests in the actual studio to celebrate, so they phoned them all in. It got a bunch of likes and it was literally the top comment, but now it's gone, so they must have deleted it. If anyone got a screenshot or knows what it said exactly, drop it below and I'll pin your comment so it's here to stay. But listen, I'm not here to poke fun at one of the oldest and longest running podcasts in the world. The Fighter and the Kid has been going for over 10 years. They started in 2013 on Fox, but then they went out on their own in 2016 after a contract dispute, and ever since it's been downhill. They struggle to get 50,000 views per episode, and considering that they used to get hundreds of thousands and even millions of views, it has to be one of the most epic downfalls in podcast history.
This is where I'm at. Like, maybe we don't reach 1 million views or even 100,000 per episode. I'm okay with it. I wish it did. That'd be great. But if it means like hustling and playing the whole YouTube algorithm game, like I'm not going to do it. I'm 41. I'm not going to do it.
Yep, makes sense. But like I said, I'm not here to poke fun at their podcast. What I am going to do, though, is call out Brandon Schaub for lying about his lawsuit, lying about why he quit doing stand-up comedy, and also for lying about where he gets his money from. As usual, I brought receipts. At this point, Brandon is so out of control and is so full of his own lies that he really needs to stop and get help. I really mean that. I'm not even joking a little bit. Every time he opens his mouth about the lawsuit or about stand-up comedy or anything to do with his decision-making, he only makes it worse. Brandon, if you're watching this, stop it. Get some help. The lies you're telling are damaging the people around you and ruining any semblance of integrity that you never had. For all my regulars watching who have been following this train wreck from the beginning, you're going to see Brandon lying through his teeth yet again, blaming everybody but himself for the damage he's caused, while Bryan Callen sits next to him, enabling all his lies because he's got skeletons in his own closet that he's still trying to hide. But if you're new here, don't worry, I'll get you up to speed as we go along. If you end up wanting more, you can go and check out my Patreon via the link in the description, where I have full detailed coverage of all the legal filings in this case, as well as Rogan's Alpha Brain lawsuit. There's also more uncensored content over there that you might be interested in, so go and check that out. For now though, sit back and relax, grab a cupcake, and let me explain what's going on. To celebrate episode 1000, they did a 3-hour podcast where they had their buddies phone in for a chat, which was cringe as fuck. But they also decided to answer some questions from their so-called fans, and nothing was off limits, including how they mistakenly bullied and threatened Bobby Lee, Brandon's failed lawsuit, and his recent retirement from stand-up comedy.
What's going on with you and Bobby Lee? Have you guys squashed everything?
Yeah,
I mean,
so real quick, Brian's closer with, he's always been closer with Bobby than I was. Like, me and Bobby didn't talk like weekly or even monthly. If I saw him at the store, we're always cool.
Yeah.
But it's not like if I tell you, which is the truth, I don't talk to Bobby. I didn't talk to him before any of this. So there's no falling out. We were never that close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we spoke a little bit, and I said, you know, I love you and I'm eternally sorry. And he said, we're good. And, you know, so I love him and I take full responsibility. I was going through something. I was not working on good information, and I was wrong. Through and through. That guy didn't deserve it. I was defending my friend Brendan. I wasn't working on all the information, and I don't know. I could get into what it was. I was going through some really crazy shit, and I just lost my mind.
It was a weird time.
And I lost it on the last person that deserved it.
And I'll take
And
it.
I've apologized to him unreservedly.
So, for those of you who don't know, a few years ago, Brandon and Bryan got trolled by somebody who was claiming to have evidence that Bobby Lee was behind some of the posts on the Fighter and the Kids subreddit, which included stuff about Brandon cheating on his wife, hitting his children, and other deeply embarrassing details about Brandon's personal life. They jumped onto this fake evidence and immediately started calling and texting Bobby and his ex-girlfriend Kalila, threatening to expose that they were in an open relationship, as well as physically threatening Bobby Lee himself. The only person I know of who threatened Bobby Lee and actually assaulted him as well is Ari Shafir, so they were in good company. Unfortunately, it all ended up being fake. Bobby had nothing to do with the Fighter and the Kids subreddit. Brandon and Bryan went into damage control, and the rest is history. But instead of taking responsibility for their actions and being straight up about it, they still blame the people around them for leading them astray.
That whole time was so weird. Like now I'm in a much better place, much healthier. I don't have the wrong people around me. Like when that was going on, like if that same opportunity came to me now, someone pitched, I'd be like, are you out of your no.
There was
absolutely. It was so weird. So and then also like I never thought it would become what it did. Hey, I don't want this to go public. I heard some of this stuff, and then it just became this monster, So it's like,
and part of it's because people love Bobby. I was out of line. You know what I did?
I told you that when we got off, I'm like, holy fuck.
I fucked up. And I've never
to be honest,
like
Brian, then straight, I'm not, don't get mad at this. Brian has horrible anger issues.
Yeah.
The worst out of anybody I
get
know.
a little crazy.
Yeah, when you get mad.
When I think my friends are getting, I was mad about some stuff that was going on.
No, I get it. When you get mad, you get mad.
So at least Bryan Callen's being straight up about what he did and taking responsibility for it. He was the one who called up Bobby and physically threatened him. But yet again, here we have Brandon using every excuse in the world to deflect responsibility when all of this concerned him, his family, and the things he was doing behind their backs, allegedly. The reason I'm bringing up the Bobby Lee drama is because Brandon used this in the podcast to try and justify launching a lawsuit against a YouTuber known as Unique. Essentially, his argument is that he was in a bad place, he was trusting the wrong people, and he got dragged into something that he didn't fully understand. This is Bappa rewriting history in real time.
So, but that was a time period. It's like the same thing I'm sure you get brought up. Like, even with this lawsuit thing, right, with this YouTuber, that's all around the same time. I have a whole team, right? You have business managers, you have this entertainment manager, you got lawyer, you got this. I have a whole bunch of people working for me at the time. I've never been the guy to give people like, you can control this. Never. It's not my thing. That's why I'm at where I'm at. But somewhere along the line, I lost my way. I started delegating certain things to people. And you notice, but like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, my social media was awful because it's not me. Those days are gone.
Did you get that, guys? Brandon never delegates, ever. That's just not his style, except he did it on that one occasion. Basically, Brandon puts it all down to being in the wrong headspace at the time, as well as having the wrong people around him, giving him the wrong advice, and simply trying to profit off of his fame and fortune. This is his full explanation, and just so you know, I had to edit this pretty heavily because he was umming and ahhing, stuttering and repeating himself, so I did my best to help him form normal sentences. Take a look.
So the lawsuit thing, I'm sure it's a question, the lawsuit thing. A guy who's no longer with me, a business guy, comes to me and goes, hey man, there's this guy on YouTube. Again, I hand to God, I've never seen any of it. I don't see any of it. So this guy who works for me, right, doing this stuff, business manager, he goes, hey man, I got a call from this lawyer. I've known him a long time. That there's this guy on YouTube. He's making thousands of videos, bad mouthing you and using your content, blah, blah. And I go,
he said, I don't care.
I go, I don't care, dude. There's a million of them. What are you going to do? He goes, that's bad, man. He said, you hit your kids. And I was like, okay. Next week comes back, same thing. Dude, I'm telling you, I really think we should do something, and they know how to pull out my heartstring. He goes, he has a rap sheet where, he beat his son. It's on video on there. I'm like, whoa. All right, do what you got to do.
That's right.
And I was told,
child abuse.
I was told, this is easy to take 3 months. It's still going on. That was
really
3 years ago. It's still going on. But here's what people don't realize is, so they told me 3 months, and I don't know if they were in cahoots together, just getting money out of me or whatever. Me 10 years ago, I would never, you're never going to beat the internet. It's just, internet's going to internet. There's nothing you can do.
Internet's going to internet.
And at the time, like the initial cost good amount of money, but again, at the time, whatever, your boy's balling. You know, so at the time, like, yeah, do what you got to do.
Okay, so let's break this down because it's important to set all of this out to understand just how full of shit he is. And trust me, it gets worse. Brandon saying that he never knew about the videos Unique was making. It was brought to his attention by a business manager who potentially had some sort of arrangement with a lawyer to screw Brandon out of legal fees to line their own pockets. At the time, they told him it would only take 3 months to get it all settled and done, but now 3 years later, it's still going. Do you notice how nothing is ever his fault? He decided to go with the lawsuit because the YouTuber allegedly beat his own son, so he had to throw in that little humble brag there. And that line we've heard him say before, "You're never going to beat the internet," Brandon was the one who leaned into all the hate he was getting by telling all of his haters that he's rich, he's more successful than them. What they think doesn't matter because they're all nobodies hiding in their mom's basements. He did that. And look how it all turned out for him. He can't go anywhere or say anything without getting shit on by all of his haters. So for him to act all high and mighty with his catchy phrase, it's yet another example of Brandon trying to rewrite history. Anyway, let's keep going. It's about to get good.
Well, thank God, and people don't realize this, and even if he's doing, like, dragging it out, it's pro bono. I don't pay anymore. So if whatever issue they have with it, I couldn't tell you what's going on with it. I couldn't tell you when it's going to end. I know nothing about. I don't associate with them anymore. I couldn't tell you. I could not tell you. Again, I take accountability because that's all. I have to give these people jobs. I have the wrong people around me that I hired. Horrible people, right? I have this business guy that had no business managing any of my shit.
Bad information.
Bad information, and I'm at a time where I'm not steering the ship, and it's not good.
Okay, first up, Brandon does not know what pro bono means. I think what he's trying to say is that they were working on a no-win, no-fee basis, which also doesn't make sense because he's previously admitted to having paid their massive legal bills. So either they've switched it to a no-win, no-fee basis after the lawsuit started dragging out for years, or he's just straight up lying. But the other thing that caught my attention was the pretty outrageous statement that he wasn't in control of his company, Thick Boy Productions, which is the entity that brought the action against Unique. I went and looked up who the directors are of Thick Boy Productions, and I found this. His father, Peter, was the first director, and then he brought his son Brandon on as a director as well at a later date. Now, the way these kinds of things usually work is that a representative of the company, usually a director, has to sign off on the legal filings. Sure, your lawyers submit them on your behalf because they're lawyers, but the individual or company bringing the suit is ultimately responsible for bringing the action and would need to sign off on it. So given that you can't delegate directors' obligations and responsibilities, there are 3 possibilities here. The first one is Bappa's right, and his lawyer and former business manager are running the lawsuit without his knowledge or involvement. If that's true, the lawyer needs to be reported to the American Bar Association because that's illegal and he would be disbarred. The second is his dad is calling the shots and paying the bills without Brandon's knowledge or involvement. And the third is Brandon knows exactly what's going on and he's straight up lying about not being involved in the case.
Now you can notice, fast forward now, had to take time off from stand-up. I'm doing too much. I got cut back on the shows. I was going down a bad road, man. I control it. My social media, your boy's back. I've been back about a year now. Everything you see now is my decision. Notice how much better it is, how much more positive I am. I'm a positive person. That time when Brian's going through that and we're going through all this mayhem, that was probably the darkest hours of our careers, of our lives.
And I made it worse by far by pointing my gun at somebody I care about that didn't deserve it.
But to your defense, that could have been Bobby. That could have been Rogan. That could have been Bert Kreischer. It was just at that moment.
On that
yes.
day, I was going crazy.
And it just so happened
I was
you
going
took your
through
anger on
something.
Bobby.
Well,
Yes.
I was going through something else.
Yes.
But I don't
surprised
me.
me.
But also, I don't like talking about it because that makes an excuse.
No, it's not an excuse.
For me.
So again, I want to give Bryan Callen credit here for taking this on his own shoulders and not trying to deflect onto anybody else. But as for Brandon, he made some interesting comments there that we've heard before. Things are different now. He's changed. He's in control. He's the one calling the shots. Hey, Bappa, diss you?
I mean, can you sue people? Have you tried doing any of that?
No, I mean we have a lawsuit with a guy who made like 3,000 videos. Again, if you're gonna critique stand up or my fight picks or whatever, my football picks, all good. That's what the internet's for. Now, if you're going to go out there and defamation, like, whatever, Brendan hits his kids or beats his wife, well, then you got my attention. I'm going to come after you.
Oh,
yeah, that game I don't play. And the guy's suffering from that. So
That was only 6 months ago, yet Brandon claims to have no knowledge of the lawsuit, what it's about, where it's at, or why he's doing it. Clearly, based on his own words, the lawsuit was always about silencing a YouTuber who was posting videos exposing Brandon's lying and cheating, allegedly. But forget 6 months ago, what about just recently when he finally lost the lawsuit? That's right, Brandon ended up losing the lawsuit, and then only a month ago, he filed an appeal. He's appealing the loss. What happened to being in control, Bubba? You just said everything happened in the last 18 months are all your own decisions, so either someone is fraudulently filing lawsuits on your behalf, maybe your dad's doing it for you, or you're just plain full of shit. And that's what I don't get. It's so easy to look all of this stuff up. I've covered this extensively. Does he not realize we all know the truth about this lawsuit, how he lost and how he filed an appeal? One other thing, I've seen this a lot on my travels, both from guys like Rogan and Brandon and their fangirls as well. It's the whole argument that they don't know what's going on. It's their producers and their people who are doing the copyright claims and strikes, so you can't blame them for it. Let me ask you this then. If I wanted to fight back and sue them for the tort of interference in my business, who do I sue? Do I sue Bent Pixels, Superbam, Brandon's producers? Nope. I sue the entity or the individual who owns the copyright, so this whole argument that it wasn't them, it was their people, well, it has no bearing in the law. It's just a cope. This is why he needs to stop, get help, and get as far away from a camera and microphone as possible. Except there's one problem. It gets worse. One of the questions they got from their so-called fans for episode 1000 was one thing that they're proud of each other for. Here was Brandon's response.
I'll get emotional here. It drives me, if we're being honest, leave this, Jin. Don't edit this out. I'm speaking from my heart. I know you're not going to like this. I'm going to look right. It drives me nuts. Nuts. That Bryan's at where he's at. I will challenge anyone, any comic, to go on stage after Callen. And you're telling me Bryan's not better than 99% of those fucking comics. It drives me nuts that he's not up there with those guys. And you want to outcast him over some bullshit? That's what I don't with. That's what upsets me. So what makes me proud, and not mad, I'm trying to get mad, what makes me proud is he's not going to lash out about it. Bryan's cool. Bryan goes to work. Bryan's doing the road. Bryan's trying to sell tickets. But I'll tell you right now, I don't forget. That shit's not cool with me. That's why you don't see me at those fucking places. Sorry, dude.
Come on. Thank you.
I don't think she could read right now.
1000th episode.
Yeah. So
Oh man, here we go. Okay, so back in 2020, 4 women came out and made allegations against Bryan Callen, which to this day he vehemently denies. He has never been found guilty of any criminal charges by a court and therefore maintains his presumption of innocence. However, Bryan did try to sue the husband of one of the complainants for effectively cancelling him. Bryan claimed that her husband contacted his agents, which subsequently dropped him as a client, as well as various comedy clubs, which also refused to book him at the time. Even some of the sponsors of The Fighter and the Kid refused to do business with them if Callen stayed on the show. Unfortunately, Bryan wasn't able to prove his case to the sufficient standard and eventually withdrew his action. That isn't why Bryan's comedy career never took off. The real reason is he's simply just not that funny. Now, I don't hold Bryan in the same low regard as Brandon, but this isn't it, Buppa. Sitting there and rage crying because your buddy didn't make it in comedy is fucking sad. You can't force us to find you or Bryan Callen funny. It's got nothing to do with the allegations. See, this is what I mean when I say Brandon needs to stop and get help. He still doesn't get it. Even though he claims to be back on top, he's making his own decisions and he's no longer being manipulated, he still doesn't understand how comedy works. You've got to be funny. That's it. Bryan has access to Joe Rogan on his podcast, The Mothership, as well. He can go on any of his buddies' podcasts and get exposure. He's got his own website, his own podcast as well, so there is no excuse for not making it. And as for Brandon's own comedy career, well, he's finally let the real reason for quitting stand-up slip.
I was just living a weird life, man. On the road, like not making decisions like a married man and a father of 3 should do. Like I was going down a road that I was like, who is it? Like
Impulsive.
literally, I was like, who is this guy? What the f are you doing, man?
Yeah.
And
Me too.
That's why you don't see me on the road. Yeah. That's why, I'm around my kids. Like I was going down a road that it's not what I do. Guys who can manage that stuff, God bless you. You're figuring out better than I am. I can't do the road. I can't give you the good quality podcast. I can't do the car stuff I want to do and be a dad and be a coach and be a good husband. I can't do it. Yeah. So something has to give. If that means making less money and not doing the road, sign me up.
Now, you guys can tell me if I'm reading into this too much and I'll cop it on the chin, but that sounded to me like his wife maybe told him to stop doing stand-up and traveling to keep him home and out of trouble. We all know that Brandon has a thing for Instagram baddies. He's been caught out a couple of times, and so maybe his wife put her foot down and said, you either choose that or you quit and stay home with us and just do your podcast and total trugs in the middle of nowhere. He really just needs to stop talking. But like I said at the beginning, if you want detailed ongoing coverage of his lawsuit as well as the Alpha Brain lawsuit and more uncensored content, head over to my Patreon where I can speak more freely without any copyright restrictions, as well as YouTube's censorship regime. Otherwise, if you're not a regular of this channel yet, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you ended up enjoying this video. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next one.
You look at the valuation of their stock and how much that company is worth now because they signed Rogan compared to what they paid them. I'm a shark when it comes to business. They underpaid my man.